Hey there, friends. Welcome back to this Jersey Girls home. I am Vicky, and today I am preparing, more like tonight, I am preparing dinner and waffles. I want to get the waffles frozen, made and frozen in the freezer so that my kids have easy access to breakfast items. And before I get started with that, I want to get this chicken prepped. So I need to get my chicken ready for dinner, and we have been seeing a lot of recalls in the news lately. A lot of those are due to unsanitary conditions, unsanitary surfaces, equipment, hands. So, one thing I want you to see in this video is the cleaning. So, you'll see me cleaning my hands a lot when I'm dealing with the chicken, and that is because I don't want any cross contamination. So, if I've touched the chicken and then I touch something else, I'm going to wash my hands. I'm going to clean the surface when I'm all done and not reuse the cooking items that I've used for prepping um, until they have been sanitized. So I just cut my chicken into 1 inch chunks so that I can put it in a bag and quickly marinate with some Italian dressing. I am going to be making garlic parmesan chicken skewers, and so that's why I wanted them in 1 inch chunks. And um, putting some Italian dressing in there just to give it some extra flavor because we really like our spices. So, again, you're going to see me washing my hands a lot right now, as well as cleaning my surface with some antibacterial spray. And anytime that I pull my stuff out to do stuff, I'm going to do this even if you don't see it on camera. But I did want to try to make an effort to include these moments on this video so that you can see that part of cooking at home is dealing with a lot of hand washing, a lot of cleaning. And while my entire kitchen may not always be super clean, any surfaces that I'm using will definitely be clean.
Let's make some waffles.
Okay, let's get our ingredients out of the pantry. We are going to need flour and sugar, of course. But as I go to start scooping out my flour, I remember that I forgot to get my bamboo sticks soaking in water for the chicken skewers. So I'm grabbing 5 of those and getting them in a pan with water. Now I'm ready to go back to my waffles. We are doubling the recipe, so I need 4 cups of flour. When I bring the container back, I think to grab the cocoa powder because I have decided that I'm making chocolate waffles. And I'm going to need 1 cup of cocoa powder. And I'm actually using cacao powder. Costco sells it during the baking season. And so I have stocked up for the year on that. Then I need a 1/2 cup of sugar, 2 tablespoons of baking powder, and a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Then I'm just going to get all that put away. I have my dry ingredients in the bowl that I'll just whisk these up and then I can get started on my wet ingredients. Okay, so this recipe calls for a 1/2 cup of oil and 4 cups of milk. I have pretty much fallen in love with coconut oil. And so I found that in order for everything to mix well together and make a great batter, you need to warm up your milk and coconut oil. So you don't want to boil it or scorch it. You just want to put it in a pot, get it on the stove until it's warm and the coconut oil has liquefied. Does not take very long. You do need to stir, but this step does make the process so much easier. And then you can use coconut oil. If you were going to do butter, you could do the same thing. Um, This gives you a much healthier oil to use than if you were to use vegetable oil. But if you don't have access to this and you have vegetable oil or canola oil or whatever the other oils that you normally use, you can do that instead. So while that gets in the on the stove and warms up, I am going to get 4 eggs and 2 teaspoons of vanilla in my mixer because once the milk and coconut oil is warm, I will put them in here and mix it all together. As I work on putting this together, now that you know all the ingredients going into it, I wanted to talk to you about how the food industry has been failing the American people. Now, between the amounts of food and beverage recalls we've had this past year, to the unsafe growing conditions, which has led to contaminated food as well as food with chemicals and preservatives that are not safe for us in them, all the way to unsafe ingredients being added to our foods. It's really concerning. It's very sad to see that when you go to the grocery store, you have to read the labels, you have to do your research in order to know if something you're planning to eat is safe or not. And to me, that is a major failure on our country's part. There are other countries that have banned foods that cause serious illnesses, and yet in America, we're still consuming them. How are we so far behind from these other countries? Anyway, I have been making an effort over the past few years to use my skills to grow, preserve, and feed my family with higher quality foods. Been cooking more and more from scratch. I grow as much food as I can. It is definitely not easy. It is rewarding. That batter is looking really good there. Here's a better view. But everyone can try to do some of these to some scale, whatever your preference may be. And I thought that with the recent recall of waffles, that I would show you how easy it is to make them. You are literally mixing your dry ingredients, your wet ingredients, you're putting them together and getting them in a waffle maker. Very, very simple. It does not take a lot of skill. It will save you a lot of money and it'll have a lot less filler ingredients in it. You can really play with them and make a lot of flavors that you want. So, I do recommend that even if you are just want to start small and do a few things that contribute to making your lifestyle healthier and safer and better, to make homemade foods whenever possible, even if it's only one thing here and there. Before I continue talking, let's look at what I'm doing right now. I am putting those chicken skewers together, just sliding the chicken on the bamboo sticks. And when I'm done, I'll get them in the air fryer. I have a little mini oven that has an air fryer setting, and this is going to go in there just perfect size wise. Okay, back to our discussion of what's been going on in the news lately with food. So, lots of recalls. It feels like every week there's a new recall, and sometimes it feels even more prominent than that. And that's because it is. I looked up the statistics, and we have had over 740 food recalls just this year for 2024, and it is not even over yet. We still have 2 more months. So that's just, it's insane. There is no reasonable explanation for that other than these food companies are only thinking about profit and only trying to get these things out the door as fast as it humanly possible. And that is at the risk of your health. There have been many deaths this year from food recalls. It's scary. It is really, really astonishing and eye opening, at least to me, to see how unsafe our grocery stores have become. As I was filming this video, I was beyond blown away with a cheeseburger recall. So, when the cheeseburger recall first came out, that very minute, I was already actually making my video on these food recalls. And again, it really is disappointing to me to see the amount of recalls. And that's not the only thing that the food industry is failing us on. I mean, they are putting ingredients in our food that should not be in there. We do not need, it's actually beyond needing. We should not be consuming the amount of sugar we're consuming, the amount of salt we're consuming, as well as the preservative chemicals, the growing chemicals, many things that are put into our food that are unsafe for human consumption. Yeah, it's great to buy a Rice Krispie treat already pre-made, but there's a chemical called BHD in it, and that causes liver failure. Is having a ready-made Rice Krispie treat at the sake of liver failure okay? No, it's not. It definitely is not. If you buy regular Rice Krispie cereal, the ingredient is not in there. But when you go to get the pre-made Rice Krispie treats, it is containing an ingredient that is extremely unhealthy. And as a parent, I was blown away to discover this. And it again contributes not just that one thing, but all of these things contributed to us growing more food and making things from scratch as much as possible. And even though we are still buying flour, we're still buying sugar, we're still buying those things from the store. And so, yes, we do risk being part of a recall. It is a slimmer chance because it's gone through less facilities and less processing, less hands. Um, when you have things that have to be pre-made and they're not just from the ingredient, they're going to more than one factory. They're going to multiple machines and they're going through lots of hands. And I mean, think about when you're at a restaurant. You go to a restaurant, if you get hair in your food, you're grossed out. It's gross. You don't want people's bodily stuff coming into your food. But when you don't see what's happening, you don't even think about it. But at these facilities, Listeria, E. coli, this is from unsanitary conditions. This is from not washing your hands. This is from going to the bathroom and then touching our food and it just spreading. Because once it hits one thing, I mean, these things are on assembly lines. They're going through machines and they're not getting the attention that they need to be a safe, germ-free item. So if you're like me, a lot of it is newer information. I, as an adult, thought what I was feeding my family was safe if it was on the store shelves. And it seems nowadays that you are finding that a lot of that is not the case. And you have to be very careful about what you buy, what you source. And it's beyond just dirty hands. It's dirty hands, dirty facilities, bad ingredients, bad growing conditions, things that are not going to change unless we do it ourselves because the profit is more important to these companies than your health. Now, I don't think you should be throwing away any food unless it's recalled if you've already been consuming it and you have it in your kitchen. I do have some Rice Krispies that are left from when I found this information out, and so we'll just finish up what we have, and then I just will not buy it again. I, in the future, will make sure that I just make it myself. I think wasting food that you've already purchased isn't going to make the difference that it will to just not buy it again. and to source differently. There may be a brand of Rice Krispies out there that does not contain this dangerous ingredient, and maybe you can buy those. But for me, financially and for my own mental security, I feel like just making it myself as a special treat is my safe plan. Anyway, you can see that I've been prepping my dinner, cooking it, and getting my dishes done from our daily eating here. We are a working kitchen, so do think my dishwasher is getting used quite often more than some. Before I started all this, I thickened up my tomato sauce with some tomato powder, and then I made garlic parmesan sauce for the chicken. It's some melted butter, parmesan. Um, I think I ended up adding garlic scapes, and parsley, and it came out phenomenal. It was absolutely delicious. On the stove, I have some spaghetti cooking, and I have green beans cooking as a side. I like to have a lot of options for eating so that my kids definitely find something that they enjoy to eat for dinner, as well as trying to make sure there's something green. Usually we have salad available, but we grew a lot of green beans this year and I was able to can up a lot. So that is a nice change of pace for dinners. Yeah, so dinner came out great that night. We make like quick meals during the week. And now let's finish these chocolate waffles. We're just gonna get this last batch out of the waffle maker. They came out so good. And then these will sit on a platter to cool down until they're ready to get bagged and put in the freezer. Look how pretty they look. They were really delicious. So I'm just putting the leftover spaghetti in a container to cool down before I get that in the fridge. And again, here's one of those things that plastic Tupperware is not really actually good for you. They're finding now that our bodies are full of microplastic because of the plastic that we use. So, one of my goals is to convert over to glass Tupperware as well as more wooden cutting boards because I do use a lot of plastic cutting boards as well. But little by little, I'll get there. So when I got these in my freezer, I had also made the day before peanut butter waffles and pumpkin waffles. So my kids have a very good assortment of some waffles to choose from for breakfast. Thanks for hanging out with me in the kitchen today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Bye.